I've got a little bit of flattening and polishing left to do on this thing, which is an absolute mission, but it's going way better than I feared it would. I've saved 3 panels to show you how I've gone about doing the flattening and polishing. And those 3 panels are good examples of the 3 errors that I made with the paint job on this thing. We have runs where I applied the paint too thickly. We have big bits of dust in the paint and remains of flies from where I did the paint job in not the best conditions. And we even have some reaction, which I'm putting down to bad luck, but is probably to do with my lack of knowledge when it comes to using various paint products. Anyway, with the right amount of determination, I'm sure I'll be able to make those 3 panels look just as good as all the other panels that I've flattered and polished already. So, if you haven't already, click the like button and subscribe to the channel as we make some more progress on Project Heidi. The days are getting shorter and shorter, and I'm just trying to squeeze in car stuff after work and whenever I can. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to have much longer around here today, but what I'm about to do is very time consuming. So yeah, sometimes it's better to just chip away at it an hour or 2 here and there. Anyway, first of all, let me give you a bit of a closer look at the state of this bodywork. It always looks better on camera, but to be honest, I could have gone way further with this polishing. It's not perfectly shiny, in my opinion. This is the side I did first, and this side around here, I actually only did the other day, so that still looks a bit better. The other side seems to have just matted off a little bit, and that might be because the paint on this side wasn't fully cured before I did the polishing. But either way, there's nothing stopping me, once this car's fully back together, going over various bits and polishing them up again to make them look a bit better. But as I said at the beginning of this video, overall I'm very happy with how this is going. This car's looking way better than I feared it would by attempting a DIY rattle can paint job. It is worth noting that I have broke through in a couple of spots when I was polishing. There's a couple of bits there, there's a bit there, and a little bit down there, and just there. But to be honest, they've happened when I was trying to block runs out. And yeah, I've actually been using a different method than that, and it's something that loads of you guys suggested to me. It's something that I was a bit anxious to try. But yeah, it is the best method in my opinion. Oh, there are bits like this as well where, you know, this is a little bit of a lump where the metal's been deformed, where the wing mirror has been bolted on. So bits like that will have to be touched up as well. But that's not the end of the world because the wing mirror will actually cover it. But yeah, I'll get to the method that I found works really well on runs and stuff, which I use before I start flattening and polishing the panels. But before that, I want to show you all the products that I've been using to do the flattening and polishing. All right, so after the runs and stuff have been corrected, these are the products that I use to flat and polish. We've got wet and dry sandpaper, very fine sandpaper that you wet before you use it. I basically use a bucket, fill it up with water, chuck the sandpaper in there so it's saturated, and then just keep dipping it into the bucket every now and again. I do use a sanding block just to try and keep things as flat as possible. So yeah, the grades that I've been using for the wet and dry: 1000 grit, then 1500, and then 2000. And then after that, I've been hitting the panels with this 3000 soft pad, but this actually goes on the DA sander. Using it on a DA potentially can give you a bit of anxiety, but this is only 3000 grit, so it doesn't take much of the paint off at all. You know, it's just a fine layer, and it's a soft pad as well, so it doesn't dig into the paint at all. Again, I wet it before I start using it, and you just make sure that you go over each bit of the panel the same amount of passes, you know, just 2 passes over everything. And yeah, this is the final stage of wet and dry sanding. And ultimately, the sandpaper takes away any imperfections, any orange peel in the paint, any light bits of dust, but that makes the paint dull and puts its own fine little scratches in it. And then, you know, you use this one, then you use the 1500, which takes out the 1000 grit scratches, then the 2000 takes out the 1500 scratches, then the 3000 takes out the 2000 scratches, and then you've got a panel that's nice and flat and, you know, not shiny at all. And then you need to polish it up, of course. Now, I've got to send a big shout out to my good friend George that lent me his car polisher, and my good friend John who lent me this cutting compound. But essentially, this pad here is softer than this one. I bought a load of pads off of Amazon to go with this polisher. So I hit the panels first with this pad, which you could call like a medium, with this cutting compound. You know, go over a few passes and then clean the panel off. Then I put this softer pad on the polisher and then use this finishing compound. Again, a couple of passes, and yeah, that makes the panels look pretty shiny. But I have had really good results going back over the panels with this little mini polishing pad on a drill, again with the finishing compound, and that just seems to, yeah, give another level of shine that I'm not able to get with this polisher. Now, I think it is just my own impatience, to be honest, and maybe the fact that the drill spins a bit faster than the polisher. The other benefit is, round here at the garage, I've got to use a generator to run the polisher. It's really noisy and I'm sort of conscious of neighbours getting upset with me. So yeah, doing the final bit with the drill means I'm making less noise. It seems to spin a bit quicker, so you can get the job done quicker, although you're obviously only able to hit a smaller area of the panel on each pass. And yeah, that's really worked for me. I bought a load of these from the middle of Lidl. This isn't the finest one. This is like a medium one, and I found that, yeah, this with the fine polish just, yeah, it works better than using the superfine one. Maybe the superfine one's a bit too fine, I don't know. But yeah, that's basically the system that I've been using, and as I say, the results have been, yeah, pretty good. All right, so let me explain the method that I've found works the best when it comes to getting rid of big runs and big defects, and it involves my mate Stanley. Now, I have put some electrical tape around the corners just to make it less likely that I'm gonna gouge the corners into the paint where I don't want it. But essentially, with a panel like this, you're literally able to, you know, follow the panel with the Stanley and, yeah, just hit the head of the runs with the blade. In fact, having the electrical tape on here means that you have to press so hard to actually hit the run that, yeah, you know, it's more effort, but then there's even less chance of you gouging away paint that you don't want to gouge away. And ultimately, the idea is to remove the defect without removing any of the other paint around it as much as you can. And that's the problem with using a block, because even if you're trying to be careful and you're trying to just hit the run, it's inevitable that you're going to be sanding a load of paint around it that you don't want to. So it's way better to get the run down with a blade until it's almost flat, you know, and then you go about blocking the whole panel with the wet and dry, and then ultimately hitting it with a polish, and then, you know, you're leaving as much meat as possible on the paint that you don't want to remove. So I'll just start trying to scrape this. You don't want to do it like this, you know, without the electrical tape on it. You just want to try and keep it like flat with the panel. And as I say, you have to press so hard for it to even start hitting the run that you kind of can't mess it up as long as you take your time. Although it is really nerve-wracking going at your paint with a Stanley blade. After a few passes with the blade, you can see that it's literally only scraping the run itself. Now I'm going to wet the panel to make the blade slide easier and just keep scraping away. All right, so those bumps are now very, very slight compared to how they were. I've only taken meat off of the actual runs themselves, and I haven't taken any meat off around them. I did mess up on this bit here. It might have been because the Stanley blade wasn't sharp. I actually changed for a brand new one after that happened. I'm going to try the same method on this bit here, which was a fly, and also on these bits of reaction around the driver's side, and then I'll show you how they come out. All right, so this has worked pretty well. Yeah, you can see that fly mark there is flattened out nicely. There is a tiny pinhole of paint missing, but there you go. And yeah, there was another couple of marks that I was able to do on this panel as well. Yeah, this panel just had a lot of dust, like big bits of dust and a couple of flies. So yeah, I've been able to get quite a few bits out. There's actually a bit there now I've just noticed, but whilst I'm doing the blocking, if I notice anything that I think, you know, needs a quick tickle with the Stanley blade, then I can do those bits then. But yeah, these bits, which I assume are reactions, they have left craters, which was to be expected, but they're not as bad as I feared. I kind of assumed that I was going to have to just repaint the bottom of this door, but I reckon I will just get away with touching them in with a brush and then reflatting and repolishing. There was a fly on this side as well. Over here you can see pinhole of paint missing and the walk that the fly took. But yeah, Stanley method has worked a treat. All right, back round to the runs on this rear quarter, and yeah, I just want to show you how I've approached the next step, which is using the block now to get the remains of the runs out. And again, it's all about trying to hit the runs and not the paint around them. Now, what I've found is that if I use the edge of the block here and sort of the corner, rather than, you know, trying to use the flat bit of the block, that enables me to try and pinpoint the run only. But this really is about taking your time. So yeah, literally, I just sort of try and hit the run like this. This is obviously the 1000 grit wet and dry. So yeah, I just literally try and hit the run only like that. Right, so far I've done this area here, and yeah, you can see they are virtually gone. And what you can do to double check is put some degreaser on a rag and wipe the area, and then you'll see any faint bits that are left will show up more because the panel's shiny. But at this stage, you want to get the runs so that they're almost gone, and then any remaining bits will get taken off when you do the blocking of the whole panel. But see, barely any left now. I've now repeated the process on the other two panels, but there are a couple of bits that need a bit more attention. With those bits sorted, I'm going to protect the front wing with some masking tape, and now I'm going to grab the 1000 grit paper and wet sand the entirety of those three panels, using a block to keep things flat. Then I'm going to sand with a 1500 and 2000 grits, and then the 3000 on the DA sander. After a degrease, it's time to get polishing, using the blue pad on George's polisher. 4 pea-sized dots of compound on the pad is all I need, and I'm going to do a small section of the door at a time. Once I've spread the polish out over that section, I'm then going to go very slowly and do about 3 or 4 passes over that whole section. As you can see, we've already got quite a nice shine, but that's only the first stage. I'm going to keep going until I've done the rest of those 3 panels, then go again with the black pad on the polisher, which has made things even more shiny. And now I'm going to polish it all yet again, this time with the green pad on the drill, which vastly improves the shine even further. So much so that there are a couple of areas where I can see the runs haven't fully gone, especially here on the rear quarter panel. So I'm going to re-sand those areas, starting with the 1000 grit, then I'm going to go up through the grades and finish with another polish. And that is much better. I can now no longer see the runs, and this job in general is looking super shiny. Just look at that reflection. Not bad for an idiot on his flattening and polishing debut. All right, well, who noticed my mistake? I forgot to use this polishing compound on the first stage. I ended up doing both stages with this finishing compound, but it's not the end of the world. In general, the job is certainly looking shiny. I did notice a couple of other defects as I was polishing, some that I'm not bothered about because they're so low down. Bit of a run there, bit of a run there, and of course, as you already would have seen, we've got this little bit to touch up, and in fact, just next to that, I hope you can see that, we've actually gone a little bit thin, and the run that was here is still there. I haven't bothered trying to block that out more like I did with this bit, because yeah, this area is going to be getting touched up with paint anyway because of that. So that's not the end of the world, and yeah, in general, this is looking pretty good. It could look better. It's not perfect. You know, with these things, the amount of time you're willing to put into it decides on, you know, the result. But for a car that is set to be a bit of a missile, this is looking more than mint enough. I'll just show you the door that had the reaction, which if I zoom right in, you can barely see. So there's a couple of the dots there, but yeah, once you're zoomed out to there, you can't see them. And of course, when you're zoomed right out, it just looks like a shiny beige Model Mark II. And yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with what I've been able to achieve with this flattening and polishing. I've only broke through in a couple of places, which I will touch up. There's a couple of other bits for the car that I want to paint beige at the same time. And there's another couple of areas around the car that are going to need touching up. I'm going to cut this out a bit more. I need to trial fit the arch and the front spoiler just to see how much I can get away with cutting out. Yeah, just don't want any issues with clearance on the wheel when I'm drifting and stuff. And also around the back here, I need to cut out this a little bit further because I'm going to extend the diffuser further than I planned to originally. So yeah, next time I come around here to the garage, I'm going to be chucking some beige paint about. But before that, there's a feature on this channel that I've really been slacking with the last couple of months. We are now deep into October 2025. This year really is flying by. But I want to temporarily go back in time because we still haven't given a mention to August's entry in the official 2025 MH calendar, which is Chris's awesome Sierra Sapphire Cosworth. Now, I love a Saf Cosy, especially one that's been extensively modified, and Chris's is an awesome example. As you can see from these photos, it is a very clean example, but it has clearly been built with go as well as show in mind. At first glance, I'm loving the stance, I'm loving the alloy wheels, and I'm a huge fan of the Moret headlights, and it's really cool to see that the inner spotlight holes on the Morets have actually been utilised as cold air feeds to the engine bay. It's clear that the car does have an aftermarket intercooler, but it's cool that it appears that the front bumper hasn't been chopped about too much to make it fit. It's just smartly mounted behind the normal bumper. The middle of the grille just above the bumper has been cut out, so there's no Ford badge, but I think that really ties in to the look of the front end with the Morets and the cold air feeds into the engine bay anyway. Into the engine bay, which looks really well presented with the iconic red Cosy rocker cover and plenty of fresh and shiny bits bolted to the Cosy YB lump. Even to my untrained eye, you can see that the Cosy lump is modified, but the engine bay is still very tastefully done. It's not full of chrome or polished parts. For example, all the aftermarket tanks and reservoirs seem to have been powder coated black for that more stealth look. Even the AN fuel lines have been made using stealth black hose and fittings. To go along with that, yes, clearly modified, but also understated look of how the engine bay is laid out. Now, Chris has sent a spec listing via email, so massive thanks to you if you're watching, Chris. So I'm literally just gonna read through the spec and yeah, throw up some other pictures of the Saf Cosy as I do so. So this is a 1988 Flint Grey 2-wheel drive sapphire Cosworth, and it's making about 360 bhp. The engine spec includes a Group A head gasket, it's got a ported and polished cylinder head, a T34 turbo with a 0.63 housing and a billet compressor wheel, and the engine has 55-pound Siemens injectors, and it runs on L8 Cosworth 4x4 management. The map is a Morris Motorsport custom map for 360 horsepower. It has a gated sump baffle, a high pressure oil pump, an AEM uprated fuel pump, and uprated fuel lines with AN fittings all the way from the tank to the fuel rail and back again. All the hoses on the engine are black silicone hoses. The huge air filter is a Group A K&N item. It has Bailey aftermarket breather, header tank, swirl pot and power steering tanks. The exhaust is a 4-inch mongoose system. Then into the transmission, it's got a hydraulic clutch conversion with a 5-paddle Helix Motorsport heavy duty clutch. And the diff is a Barra Motorsport uprated unit. It has a Pace intercooler fitted and an alloy radiator with AirTech twin uprated fans. The car is fully polybushed all round. It has all aftermarket wiring harnesses for the fan, the fuel, the engine. It of course has the Moret headlights with the Ram air feeds. The rims are Compomotive MO6 18s. The brakes are BMW E38 Brembos on the front with Mk2 Focus RS discs and R32 GTR rear brakes. And the car is running EBC brake pads. All the brake lines are braided. The car's sitting on Coney adjustable shock absorbers all round with -30mm SPAC springs. It has Race Tech dash gauges, and the interior of this Cosy is standard Cosworth light cloth interior. So yeah, as you can see, a really healthy spec and just an awesome example of a SAF Cosy. I want to thank Chris for getting in touch with the extra pictures and the spec list, but now it's back to working on Heidi. All right, so I've been working behind the scenes to get this thing prepped and ready for me to touch up the paint where needed, which has included a bit of butchery. As you can see, I've cut a bit more away from the front wings and a bit more on the bottom front corner of the front panel, and round the back I've actually cut out the rear panel even more so that I can widen the silly diffuser that I'm going to be fitting to this thing. I've actually decided to make it literally go as far as the inside of the chassis legs, but yeah, this is going to add another level of aggression and I think it's going to look, well, ridiculous. Now the areas where I have cut out, I have obviously dusted on some etch primer to cover up the bare metal. On this rear panel I've used this soft edge tape to go around the edge where I'm going to be painting this beige, just because I want to be able to polish and sort of blend it in. Yeah, I've just realised an error with this actually. I need to move this soft tape outwards because the etch primer has gone up to this and I'm going to need the beige paint to go a bit further. So I'll sort that out in a minute. There is a little area here where I broke through with the polishing as well. And it's worth noting that I actually ran out of masking tape, so I haven't masked this up as well as I wanted to, but I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, most of the areas where I've broken through, I've literally just masked up and left a little square. You know, I don't want to make this touch-up job any bigger than it needs to be. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. This area here where we had the little craters with the reaction, I've just scotched those and I'm going to be trying to touch up these bits with a paintbrush. Although when I say paintbrush, I haven't actually got a paintbrush, so I'm probably going to use a screwed up bit of tissue or something. But yeah, I'll gradually dab those areas with dots of beige paint and hopefully we'll be able to fill those craters in. There's also a couple of bits around the car where paint has chipped off like this. I have touched a little bit of etch primer into it and yeah, that will get touched up as well. We've got a little square masked out here, little square masked out here, and then on this rear quarter panel bit I've decided to go a bit further with the paint just because we've got thin paint here and for all I know this whole area might be a bit thin. I have dabbed a little bit of etch primer into that little crater there though. So yeah, this is the only area that I've decided to actually paint quite a bit of the panel. What I should have mentioned when filming this video but didn't is that all the areas that are going to be blown in with paint were blocked to 1000 grit with the wet sandpaper, and it was all fully degreased. But you'll learn later in the video that maybe I should have gone a bit heavier than 1000 grit wet sanding. Now, in terms of the paint, I am of course going to be using this 2-pack spray can from my friends at BODICRAFT in Watford. This is exactly the same paint that I painted the car with. This was mixed up at the same time as the paint that I painted the car with. So hopefully, in terms of colour matching, this should be absolutely fine. And BODICRAFT also supplied me with this fade out thinner, which I've never used before. But the idea of the fade out thinner is that once you've finished painting on the last coat, you can peel off the masking tape and then just spray that thinner around the edge of your patch, which should in theory make the paint fade into the old paint a bit better. I've never used it before, so fingers crossed it goes all right, and it should mean that there's less polishing to do to try and fade my patches in with the old paint. So yeah, interested to see how I get on with this. Now, I do have a load of other bits that I'm going to be painting beige today as well. There's some more bits in this bag. All these bits have already been etch primered. The plastic bits have been plastic primered before the etch primer. This grille was an absolute mission to mask up. Some of you guys may remember that when I had this fitted to Maud, my old model Mk2 Escort, I basically masked up and painted the edge and the FORD and these stripes in the middle blue for that car. Well, I've decided to do the same thing again, but with beige. So yeah, this took about 2 hours to mask up. But yeah, that's been plastic primed and etch primered. But I'm actually not going to crack on with these right now because I'm worried that the weather might turn. So I'm going to focus on getting the bits done on the body shell. Then I can push Heidi back in her garage and crack on with painting the other bits in the other garage. So yeah, let's crack on. Once I've adjusted the masking on the rear panel, it's time to get painting. After a shake, I'm going to mix the paint with the hardener by using the ring to pull and twist the pin on the bottom of the can. Then after another shake, I'm ready. I'm going to use a tack cloth as I go round to remove any surface dust from the areas before I spray the paint on. I'm going super light with the first coat, and in fact on the rear quarter panel I'm only painting the bit where I broke through. Now it's time to spray some paint into a lid so that I can use a makeshift paintbrush to touch up all the really small bits. I almost forgot to do these bits at the front, but once they're done I'm going to wait 15 minutes or so before giving everything a second coat and eventually a third coat. And I've clearly gone way too heavy on that third coat. Look at the runs. They're worse than the runs that I tried to correct before. Dear oh dear. No time to cry about it now though. I need to demask the car and then throw the fade out thinner around the edge of my blow-ins. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna wing it. Alright, well that couldn't have gone any worse. Yeah, proper disaster. I think it might be partly to do with the fact that the panels were a lot less rough than they would have been if I'd have used a 600 over everything, like if I was just going to repaint whole panels. But yeah, disaster. I will recover from it, I'm determined, but yeah, not good. Anyway, let's crack on with those other parts. The weather is still looking pretty good, so I can paint some of the other bits outside and the rest I've got hanging or laying inside the garage. And this time I'm going to try not to put too much paint on. Alright, well the weather hasn't turned yet, so I've pulled Heidi back out and we can have a closer look at the disaster that has occurred. But the more I remind myself that this thing is set to be ultimately a drift missile, the less I'm bothered about it. But it is disappointing. We are literally back to square one or beyond. Major runs on this rear quarter panel. I'd like to think that there's so much paint on here now that I will hopefully be able to flat these runs down without breaking through, but I'll be leaving this for weeks, maybe even months to go off properly. But yeah, bit of a disaster. We've even got a fly in there. Oh dear. But yeah, I'll just give you a look at all the patches. This one's not looking too bad. I am going to need to feather out the edges though with, you know, flattening and polishing. That fade out thinner didn't work how I was hoping, but I think it's more for when you've just dusted into an area. And because I've done my patches so small, inevitably the edges had way too much paint for the fade out thinners to work. But yeah, these bits down here won't be seen behind the body kit and that, so not really fussed about them. And then we've got major runs on this front wing. Dear oh dear. Managed to touch that chip up all right. These reaction craters, we'll just have to see how they look once they've gone off properly and I've flattened the area back and repolished, but they're not going to look any worse than they did before I started today. And literally, you know, once you're sort of back this far, they couldn't be seen. So that will be absolutely fine. And then this patch at the back, yeah, not the worst. That'll be all right. And the best bit seems to be this rear panel where I cut it out for the diffuser. And that's probably the bit you're going to notice less, because you're going to have the bumper here, you're going to have the diffusers take your eye off it. But yeah, that seemed to work okay. So yeah, that's one win. Had a little bit of a disaster painting the other bits as well. Because basically the can ran out just as I'd finished the first coat on all the bits. I did grab another can and I decided to crack on with this, but without pulling the pin on the bottom. So without mixing it with the hardener. And my theory with that is that the paint should still go off because I'm putting it on top of a coat that did have the hardener in it. Let me know in the comments if I'm right or wrong about that. But yeah, with the second can, I basically just gave the front grille another coat. And yeah, the rest of it, I gave this another coat as well. This doesn't really matter that much. The radiator will take your eye off it anyway. And oh, actually, these had a bit of reaction on them, so I was able to tickle the heads of the reaction with some 500 grit, and then I went over these bits again with the second can, as I say, without the hardener mixed in. But if these don't come out any good, I'll grab a can of the 2-pack paint from a different company that I painted the interior of the car with, and that's one that's got like an air drying activator, so it's not proper 2-pack. But yeah, if it comes to it, I'll just give these another coat with that, and yeah, that'll be the same paint that's used on the interior anyway. But yeah, these engine covers, I'm a bit disappointed that I wasn't able to give them a second coat, but they do look somewhat shiny, so yeah, hopefully I'll get away with that. And then these bits here, I don't think I've shown before, are just gauges that are going to be in the dash, so I thought I'd do them beige as well. But yeah, these literally have only had one coat. There's the 2 bigger gauges over there, but they're such a small part that one coat on them is probably still quite a layer of paint, if you know what I mean, when you're trying to paint something really small. Yeah, the build inevitably is thicker. So yeah, it certainly doesn't look like a dust coat. It is shiny, so yeah, they should be all right. So there you go. Not the most positive video I've ever made, what with the disasters, but if you've been watching my videos a while, you'll know that I'm no stranger to disasters, and you'll also know that with my determination and positive mind, I normally overcome any disasters that do occur, and I'm confident that I'll be able to fix these runs and get Heidi, yeah, looking half decent. But look, in the grand scheme of things, if you stand back and just consider that this was painted by an idiot with rattle cans, even with today's disasters, yeah, it's come out way better than I feared it would. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed. Anyway, I am now going to not let those runs prevent me putting this car together. I've waited too long, and I'm just excited to get it all bolted together with the body kit and with the silly bits. So that will be happening very soon. But first, I think in the next video, while I'm waiting for this paint to go off a bit, there is something quite technical I need to tackle, and yeah, I'm not actually sure if I'm going to be able to do that yet, but we'll see. So yeah, that'll probably be the next video. Do give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and as always, check all the links in the description to follow me elsewhere on social media, and my email address is of course down there for anyone who wants to contact me. Other than that, got to send a huge thanks to my patrons for your ongoing support, but until next time, thanks for watching.